Morning, everyone. I'd like to call our regular meeting of City Council for Monday, October 16th to order. First order of business is 2 delegations. 2.1, we have Lori Archibald, Lakeview Credit Union, Donald Pennant, Peace Energy Cooperative, and Heather Kohler and Robin Larden from the Dawson Co-op in attendance regarding the proclamation to declare October 15th to the 21st, 2023 as Cooperative Week in Dawson Creek. So welcome, you three. You can come up if you want, and then I'll read the proclamation for 3 organizations, 4 people. You can come right up here, Lori. Yeah. Yeah, usually we go this way. All right. Whereas an original, powerful form of social enterprise, cooperative associations are democratic, member-owned organizations that enable communities to meet their common needs. And whereas cooperative associations help newcomers join in the social and economic life of their community, provide services to residents in many sectors, including finance, housing, agriculture, transportation, and retail. And whereas cooperative associations support and develop local economies by employing residents in pursuit of a better quality of life and reinvesting their profits, new ventures to further grow local economies. And whereas local cooperatives are advocates for and champions of nonprofits and charities which they support through donation, sponsorship, and volunteerism. And whereas the City of Dawson Creek and its residents have been served by cooperative unions for over 100 years and have benefited from and will continue to benefit from cooperative unions for years to come. Now, therefore, I do hereby proclaim October 15th to the 21st, 2023 as Cooperative Week in Dawson Creek. So, you know, it's such an amazing thing, but also such an amazing thing for you 3 organizations for what you do for your members. And more importantly, what you do to the community. You guys are all leaders in our community, giving back, making change in a positive way, and really where it counts. So you look at so many initiatives and things that are going on in our community, and these names are involved. So it's an honor to be able to do this for this week, but it's more of an honor just to have you in here and just thank you for the contributions you make to obviously your membership, because that's important, but more so to our community. So thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody wanted to say anything.
No.
No?
No, that's good.
Okay, I will sign this.
Thursday said it all.
Okay.
I can't believe Heather didn't have anything to say.
Event Thursday, people.
So there you go, and we'll get a picture.
Thank you.
Yeah, you want to say you.
Whoever worded
Yeah, we're gonna
that
go.
proclamation. Devastating.
Just a little bit closer together. Actually, looks pretty good. Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank
you
so much.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Don. And then this is for one of you to keep. I should have got 3 of them printed, so I can.
We'll bring it Thursday, right?
We'll take it and we'll keep it with us and we'll share it.
Okay, perfect. If you do want a copy, please just let us know, and then we can.
We do the cooperative thing, so.
Yeah,
we're gonna
One-
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming in. All right, our next order of business is 3 late items. I think there's no late items. 4 new councillor business. Councillor Apollonio.
Good morning. Yeah, just to update, just attended the library board meeting last September 25, 2023. It was a good meeting, good turnout as well. Nothing concerning, so that's good. And of course, we just concluded our Olympics, which is the Filipino-Canadian Sports Olympic. And of course, I know Mayor Darcy that I attended the World Legion Conference with Kyle doing the welcoming. So that's it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other new councillor business? Oh, all right. Next, we have 5, adoption of minutes. 5.1, minutes of the regular meeting of council for September 25th, 2023 for adoption. Councillor McDonald, second Councillor Apollonio. I will call this to vote. Oh, just didn't work. All right. We've had some technical difficulties the last two times, so all in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Next we have, or was there any business rising? No. All right, next 7, correspondence. 7.1, we have a letter from Melanie Carlson, Community Youth Justice Services, Community Bridges, Dawson Creek, September 20th, 2023, regarding the request for donations, bus and swim passes. So, Kevin, did you want to speak? I know we did something last year for them. Did you want to just touch base?
Through your worship, I don't recall what we did last year, but I thought I would just provide a little bit of cost associated with what the ask is. Right?
Okay.
So my staff pulled together some stuff. So for the swim, 10 passes would be like $5,900 because they're annual passes. And the 5 youth punch cards would be $285. So just over $6,000 for the swim passes.
Okay.
The bus passes, they said 5 bus passes. There's a couple different ways to go. You can get a monthly pass, which is $39 a month for an individual.
Okay.
Or there's a 10-pack of tickets that for individual rides, and I think that's $20 for every 10-pack. So there's a couple different ways you could go there with that if council so wished.
Okay. I think I did get a message last week. Tab, was that you that sent me on what we did last year? Could you refresh council, please?
Yeah, your worship. We did 20 singles admission swim passes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect, and thanks, Kevin. All right, Councillor Earl.
Oh, sorry.
Oh. Anybody like to? Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, before we make a motion, can you repeat what it was for the 10 punch passes for the swimming?
So through your worship, they asked for 5 punch cards, and the cost for 5 youth punch cards is $285.
Okay.
And just so council's aware, in our grant budget, I believe we have somewhere right around $9,000 left in that budget.
So, Your Worship, I'll make a motion if you
Yeah,
don't
go
mind.
ahead, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we grant 2 annual swim passes plus 10 punch card swim passes.
Have a second? Councillor Sudnick, any discussion?
With some very, very rough, quick math in my head, that'll come in right around $4,000.
So through your worship, just to confirm, so we've got 2 annual passes.
Yeah.
So those should be just right around $600 a piece.
Right.
So that's $1,200 for that. And you said 10 punch
10
cards?
tens, which would be about $570, $600, somewhere in there. Wow, it's getting smoky in here. There's a lot of people thinking across the room.
Single, individual.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
the-
10 punch
individual,
cards, right?
Yeah, punch cards, so, and each one is worth, yeah, so.
So 570. So my math was even off, so that'll
Yeah.
come in right around $2,000 then.
Yeah,
So
just under 2,000.
I think I'm comfortable with that, with what we have left for grant.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one quick question through you to staff with respect to council's annual grant budget. Do we know where we are on that? Given that it's late in the year, but I do think we have room for $2,000.
Through your worship, yeah, approximately 9,000 left in
Okay,
the budget.
good. Thank you.
I just had one question around this. So the passes that we give out, of the punch passes, is that for like multiple people can use them? Because I know last year we gave, just individual passes. So I'm wondering, if they use these for multiple youth, can they use that? Or if one person gets a punch card, only one person can use it?
So through your worship, this would be a punch card for one individual, but that could be shared between different individuals. It's just a single admission on that punch card, right, of 10. So if an individual comes in with 2 friends, they could punch it 3 times.
Yeah. I'm wondering if it would make sense if we were to amend the motion to do up to $2,000 and get in contact with Melanie and give her the best scenario that works for them, because maybe single punch passes or maybe different things work better for them, because we're not giving what her ask was, so maybe there's a reason for that ask. So is that would that work for city
Yeah,
staff?
through your worship, that we can make that work.
Okay. I don't know if everybody's okay with that. Councillor McDonald?
Yeah, absolutely. As the mover of the motion, I'm more than comfortable with that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So okay. So we're good. Do we need a second on the amendment, or that's just fine? Okay, perfect. All right. I will call this motion to vote. All in favor? Or are we trying? I'll try this again here. That's still not working. So all in favor? Opposed? It's carried.
Well, it's still voting.
I can't push anything.
Yeah, it's pushed. It's just not showing anything. Sorry. But if you stopped it now, it would come up showing who won.
Oh, okay, it's not showing. Okay.
Yeah. So it was your fault.
No, usually it highlights it.
It's still working, you just get no feedback.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's changed. Okay.
Parslow has entered the meeting.
Yeah. All right, I'll take one for the team. It's all my fault. Next order of business 7.2, email from Gail Mitchell, representative advocate for legalizing aquamation in BC, received on September 15th, 2023, regarding a request for support to include aquamation in the Cemetery, Interment, and Funeral Service Act of the Province of British Columbia. Councillor Parslow.
I have a question for staff. If you look at the resolution that Esquimalt passed, the second, is it the second or the third? Hold on. The third whereas states, local industry has available technology that will significantly reduce environmentally harmful air pollution and the consumption of fossil fuels. Is that related? Are they stating that we here in our South Peace area have the technology for this? Or is it just a general statement around reduction of fossil fuel usage? I'm a little confused.
So through your worship, I don't know with certainty, but my take on that's a general statement that industry has an ability to reduce emissions, not specifically to cremations or otherwise, but just general statement.
Okay. I'd like to move that we support this action and adopt this resolution as put forward in our package.
Do I have a second? Councillor Earl? Discussion? Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. I support the motion, so we can have a quick discussion about it. I didn't know this was a thing, so I did some reading on it, and it's interesting to be sure. I'm not sure if municipalities, there's some things I do have some questions about, I guess, around the disposal of said end product around in reading up on it. It seemed like there were constituent parts, some of which could be put into an urn as though it were a normal cremation, others which needed to be disposed of through sewer, through whatever. So I'm not sure why the provincial government doesn't allow for this at the moment, but I have some questions myself, and I'm just curious as to whether we as municipalities should be leading the charge. But yeah, I mean, I think harmless enough if that's how people want to have their remains processed. Certainly, there's no harm in that option. But yeah, just learning about this for the first time and interesting, but. If you read the process as it was described, it's very reminiscent of like mobster movies and how they would dispose of bodies in those. So kind of jarring to be dipping your toes into for the first time, and just wondering some of the implications around the disposal of the various constituent parts of the end product.
Thanks, Councillor Earl.
So through your worship, if this was something that became an option, if it was passed and made available, before we made it available to our residents, we would definitely have to make some amendments to the bylaw. We would have to ensure that we have the means and ability to properly handle and dispose, whatever that would look like. There'd be some work on our end to just some assurances piece.
Councillor Earl.
So yeah, I mean the current process for burial is obviously pretty straightforward. When it comes to cremation, I presume people do that through private business like Rainers, and we, if they want a headstone or something commemorating the person, that's a different conversation with us. So once again, this does seem like something that the province would either allow businesses to do or not, and they would be chiefly responsible for that. I'm not sure where we as a municipality enter into it other than the disposal of said.
Yeah,
end
through your
product.
worship, that's correct. And the local funeral homes would be the ones that would be providing the service. But again, it just not knowing enough about it and what it all looks like you say, on the disposal side, there'd be some questions, but we'd be working with them on that.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Councillor Earl. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Your Worship. The process and everything else notwithstanding kind of deal, but I'm not comfortable with this resolution as it's written. I find there's some underlying tones there of trying to force industry into greener technologies for climate change and that, just with the way it's written. I would not support this resolution as written at all.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Any other discussion? All right, I'll call this motion to vote. You have to let me know if they're all in, or do you not know? Okay, then I should close it. So it was defeated. Councillor Sudnick, Councillor McDonald, Councillor Kempf, and myself were opposed. All right. Next order of business, 7.3. We have email from Cathy Peters, BC Anti-Human Trafficking Educator, Speaker, Advocate, received on September 26, 2023 regarding follow-up from the Anti-Human Trafficking Initiative booth at the Union of BC Municipalities. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess this is correspondence needing a motion.
Motion to,
Okay.
yeah.
I guess I'll move we respond to Cathy's letter, thanking her for information and letting her know that our door is always open. I do have a question.
Do I have
in
a
addition.
second?
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Sudner?
So we have, in the previous council, gotten a presentation from Cathy for anybody who's ever met her. She's a very impressive person who obviously does an incredibly important job that she's very passionate about. It's one of those things where it's horrifying that a job like hers has to exist, but you're incredibly grateful that there is someone like her to do it. I do have a question with respect to the 8 strategies for cities and municipalities. In general, how do we implement these? But specifically, do we have a school liaison officer program with our RCMP here? And if not, I think that would be something worth exploring.
So through your worship, I don't believe they have a dedicated school liaison. Something I'll follow up with Staff Sergeant and just clarify, and I'll get back to council. But
Okay.
In our discussions, that hasn't come up. They may have folks that are various members that attend, but I don't believe there's a specific.
Okay. Yeah, and then maybe it's something for larger municipalities that are better resourced, but I thought it would be worth inquiring about.
Thank you. I guess one thing just to staff on correspondence, when we're receiving something to respond, from my, maybe clarify me if I'm wrong, but we respond to letters even if it's received for information, right? So this one has a clear ask in it. There's 3 asks. So if we're just responding saying, thank you for your information.
Okay.
We can just receive for information, but there is 3 clear asks in this. That she's offering, that she's available for presentation to groups in January 2022. Also talks about please purchasing her book and place it in schools, libraries, churches. And then support of the redraft, a resolution on child sex trafficking for next year's UBCM.
The reason, the open-ended offer to come in, I think would fit well with the first ask. The second ask, once again, it's not for us to put books in school libraries or churches and what have you. I think we can direct anybody who's interested toward those resources. And then the redraft resolution on child sex. I believe that resolution has come almost every year, and it passes. Like, it's not that it hasn't passed at UBCM. It's before the provincial government. So it doesn't hurt to reiterate it, but I don't imagine it'll add anything to what's already been put before the provincial government. Okay. So that was kind of my rationale in the motion is, I'd be happy to have her, and certainly if there's something we can do, but as far as placing books in schools and stuff, that's not really our jurisdiction or our purview.
No, I appreciate that, and I think it's just more clarification for the staff so they know if they're just responding as a thank you or if you're requesting that she comes, that we invite her to come here. Just some clarification on the motion for the staff.
I've seen her presentation. I'm familiar with her work, so I'm good. But we do have new councillors who've never said. If you guys would like, we can friendly amendment to the motion to invite her to present in January of 2024. If you guys would like. Anybody? We all good? Okay, so we can do that instead.
Thank you. That's good to have. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other discussion? No. All right. I will call that motion to vote.
Here we go.
just not showing us.
Tab, you'll just have to let me know when you got 7 there so I can, you're good? Okay. Vote is closed, it's carried. Next, 7.4, we have email from Jack Walsh, General Manager of Dawson Creek Golf Course, received on October 6, 2023, regarding the request for 20,000 cubic meters city water to replenish the primary pond. Just before I open this up for motion, I just wanted to, myself, maybe Kevin will touch a little bit on it too, but Jack came in, it was a couple weeks ago, I came in and met with myself and just talked about all the things that the golf course is doing and what they're doing moving forward and kind of their vision. And then he mentioned just that, their water levels are really low this year. They're hoping for a lot of moisture this winter. So I then just finished doing a water treatment tour where I got to spend some time with her, which I'll touch in Mayor's update. But, we have a very amazing facility that has kept us in very good shape. So I just thought, there's maybe an opportunity that in the fall we don't use as much water. Maybe there's the opportunity for the city. So it wasn't him coming in directly for an ask. It kind of was left at that. And then Jack reached out to Kevin and they had some dialogue. And, I also told Jack that if it was something, it would have to be a letter to come to council for us to discuss it. So he then had a meeting with Kevin, and it was similar. So then he wrote a letter asking. The other part of this is they're not necessarily asking for it for free either. They're really open to any ideas, he said, if there's a way that we could help replenish some of their ponds. And we have excess, then they would, but it's, yeah. So that was basically how the conversation went, and then he wrote the letter, and that's why it's here in front of us. So, Kevin, I don't know, did you have anything to add to that, or is that no? Okay, all right. Councillor Parslow.
Well, staff did provide the financials on this request, and I think they should be read out at this public meeting.
Yeah, sure. I don't have.
And then I have some further comments to make.
Yeah. So I guess the other part of this, and there is, Kevin will read out the values of the different water. There's, there's really only a couple ways to go about it afterwards because it's a bylaw. One is we can grant the money, which we don't have that much funds in our grant department. The other is I think we've had this happen once before with youth soccer as we amended the bylaw, or really the only two options. So yeah.
So through your worship, exactly. That's a good preamble. So just to provide some context, I'd asked Jack when I talked to him just to give me a volume, because then we could quantify it and we could value it, because it's always important to understand. So they're asking for 20,000 cubic meters of water, and so there's a couple different ways to value that. One is the variable water rate, which everybody pays in the community. And that's a rate of $2.14 a cubic meter. So even at that low rate, that's $42,000. Need to keep in mind that variable rate doesn't include the infrastructure charge that everybody pays as well on top of that, which goes towards capital renewal. So then there's the domestic bulk rate, which is the rate that water haulers hauling drinking water to residents in the rural area pay at our water fill stations. And that's $4.02 a cubic meter, so that's $80,000 worth of water. That rate is higher because the infrastructure charge is essentially encapsulated within that rate, so that we get that revenue on every cubic meter we sell that way as well to help pay for capital renewal. And then we have another bulk rate, which is non-domestic. This is the rate that is charged for any potable water that is used for non-potable uses. This was a rate established by council in probably 12 plus 15 years ago. In response to oil and gas and fracking. And there was a belief at the time that there should be a surcharge paid for those uses. And so that rate is $6.05 a cubic meter. So that's $121,000. So there's different ways to value it. As I had indicated in my correspondence with council yesterday, was the variable rate of $2.14 is very closely tied to what our cost would be to produce the water. That variable rate is meant to cover our operational costs of the system, where the infrastructure goes to capital. So although we're producing water every day, there is a cost to, whether it's electricity or, and staff time, there is a cost to produce chemicals and whatnot. So anyways, hopefully that gives some context to just the ask and the value of it.
Yeah, thank you. If I
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Barzell. Thank you, Kevin.
So the impression I have from all my reading over many years, reinforced by presentation on climate change at UBCM, and the head meteorologist saying, as it relates to what we've experienced this year, is we haven't seen anything yet. So we all have a different, perhaps philosophical position, but mine is climate change is happening, and it is largely caused by human activity. That's my premise, and I think it's a premise widely accepted by a majority of people. So any solution for the golf course should be looking at the long-term issues it's going to face. I know that other golf courses are having these problems. I know that some municipalities have even had to close their swimming pool because of water issues, water supply issues. The somewhat relentless work of this council, not this council, but past councils, on increasing our water storage capacity has really put the community in a much stronger position than it was when I first got on council. So all I'm trying to say is the golf course is going to face this problem in all likelihood. Frequently, I, as a resident, have had to, for the second time in 40-odd years, had to buy water for my sewage lagoon. The water table has really dropped. Now, we all maybe have different headspaces around the golf course, but for me, the golf course is a core asset of this community, just like the swimming pool is, just like the Memorial Arena is. And so I think we have to, even though it's run by the land is owned by the Dawson Creek Athletic Association and so on, I think we have to take I know this council, but we will take this very seriously. I know also that if you do for one, you have to be prepared to do it for others. Anything we do establishes a precedent. And so we need to think about this very seriously over that maybe the golf course will have the same problem next year and the year after that. If the meteorologist is correct, this is just going to intensify. So I'm wondering about because you did make a statement, both we did have a chat, but also in what you sent to council. One of the real wonderful things that happened with past councils was the establishment of that Shell water reclamation. And I do believe that that water can be used for watering our plants and so on. And so I'm going to suggest that water is available for irrigating the golf course. That maybe needs to be clarified, but I'm looking at that. So I think we need to find a permanent solution, not a Band-Aid solution for the golf course, treating it as a core community recreation asset. And I was wondering if Council would support my notion that we investigate with the golf course the cost of having a diversion in that line that goes from the city of Dawson to Brown Birch. Is it a feasible option for providing water to the golf course? So that's my motion, is that staff undertake a study of the cost and feasibility of having a line from the water reclamation to the golf course. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Barzal. I have a second. Councillor Sudnick. Kevin, do you got any questions to that? I guess one, too, is Kevin, and we did have some discussion around the reclamation water and being used out there. That the hard part to use it the way it is it would have to be hauled, and I think it's 600 loads, Kevin figured out. The other part of it is there is a $3.90 a cube that we charge out of there too, so that would have to be something we would have to look at as well. So.
Yeah. So through your worship, if the motion passes, it's definitely something that would be worth exploring. Even at a very high level, I think, to understand whether it's feasible.
Yeah.
Councillor's correct. We are able to use the reclaimed water for watering our plants. My concern at this early stage would be whether it would be okay to take that water and put it into their pond and use it on a broader scale. So those are questions I would need to verify with the ministry regarding our permit for the reclaimed water. If they just had trees to water, I believe, they would be able to, get an account, come get some reclaimed water and specifically water trees. A more broader irrigation of the entire course, again, that's something I'd want to clarify. So
with this motion being on the floor, if it goes through, would you rather us table this and give different direction on you getting in contact with the ministry first to make sure it's even possible before something like this would be explored? Or, I'm assuming you'll do that anyways.
Yeah. So through your worship, the motion as it sits is a feasibility. So that's going to cover that off and look at those regulatory aspects as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through your staff. So the sense of urgency around water to replenish the pond before the end of October, is that chiefly with respect to watering trees? Is they just need to water specific stuff? Just because, golf season's effectively over. We're heading into winter. I'm just wondering what the sense of urgency is. Can we not see where they're at for water come springtime? And by then we'll maybe have figured out the feasibility piece. Is there something driving the urgency?
So through your worship, the conversation I had and Mr. Walsh had indicated that they had planted some trees and there was some urgency to water them in before winter. So I think that was one thing. I don't know if that's the entirety. Maybe there's more to it, but that was one aspect. So as I understood it.
Yeah, and to Councillor Parzlow's point, I think, these issues, be it the golf course or some of the other issues, are likely going to persist, and we're going to have to learn how to mitigate and navigate and manage them. I also think we are still in a stage 5 drought, and giving tens of thousands of dollars in potable water to a golf course in the off season isn't a great message to send around sustainability to the rest of the community. And I accept that the golf course is a phenomenal asset here, and we're very fortunate for the work those guys do. But having said that, it is still, a golf course in the off season. I'd very much support Councillor Parslow's notion that we see what the cost would be to bring reclaimed there. I do know we do charge industry $3.90. It's just a flat rate for reclaimed water. There's no other uses we could, if it's not in this case, I guess, commercial use as opposed to industrial. Is there a commercial rate for reclaimed water? Or is it just flat?
Through your worship, it's just a flat fee because to date, the only reason it's been sold out of our truck fill at Reclaim has been for industrial uses.
Okay.
Mostly along fracking operations, or they have used it, I believe, for filling pipelines and hydro testing and a few things like that, but industrial uses. Again, if there was some feasibility around providing it to the golf course, then maybe that's something you look at it as potentially a different rate for a different use.
Rate. Yeah.
Sure, but that would be a little farther down the road.
Yeah. I guess so currently, in order for the water they use, I guess if they can't get it by natural means, they're just opening a hydrant. Is what you're advising? They'd essentially open a hydrant and just run a hose to the main pond.
Yeah.
Have they done? Has this ever had to happen before, or would this be the first time in your knowledge that they're making a request of this sort?
Through
or that
worship,
a request of this sort has been made?
The first time that I recall in my time
okay.
that they've had to do this. I think, again, if there is only critical pieces that need water this fall, i.e. trees, I'm going to guess they probably, maybe they don't need 20,000 cubic meters to water trees. Maybe there's a different solution we can look at in the short term with a bit more of a long-term picture to it. So those are, again, if this motion passes, there's maybe still something we can look at and talk to the golf course about the short term, and maybe they have the ability to utilize smaller amounts, whether it be water or it be reclaimed, to just water the trees.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, well, I appreciate some of the questions fellow councillors have put forward. I think we need to keep separate things separate. My resolution is the long term. I do think we need to discuss the short term. I would engage in further discussion, but this is about a possible long-term solution that may require us to do a fair bit of lobbying if we need to vary the usage of this water to watering grass as opposed to plants and trees, right? But that's why it's feasibility, and we move forward cautiously. But I think we should treat the golf course as a community recreational asset. It's not commercial. It's not industry, and we can deal with the costing of that water should we find the feasibility. We may want to deal with the costing of that water if we're going to allow some of it to be used to water trees very, very shortly. But I think we shouldn't get bogged down with this resolution about the other immediate actions. Yeah. This is a long-term solution that I think is a wonderful opportunity that we have of addressing a need that many other communities wouldn't have this capacity to deal with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're fortunate to be in this position, so I appreciate the motion. So I am going to call the motion to vote. And it's carried. Next order of business is 8 reports. We have 8.1 report number.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Oh. Councillor Parslow.
Sorry, Dawson. But I do think we need to continue this discussion.
On
short term.
Okay.
I'm sure staff will want some direction concerning this.
Yeah.
So
My apologies.
No, I mean, just don't make too many mistakes today. Only kidding.
I'm already at 2.
So my view is that it would be a travesty if they were to lose trees, and we can do something about that. Again, procedurally, I'm not sure here if we need notice of this sort of thing. Kevin, I'm sure staff will correct us. But what I'm looking at is that staff meet with the manager, Jack, and determine what are the absolutely essential needs for this fall. By that I mean saving those newly planted trees. There may be other things. And report back to us at the next council meeting. We do have one more in October, don't we? And with a motion of how we might be able to waive the charge for that water if we're using our treated, the reclaimed water, because I would be in favor of that. Because as I said, I look at this as a core recreational aspect of our community, and we should be willing to vary our proceedings. Yeah. It's not industry, it's not commercial, it's recreation. So I'd like to move that we direct staff to meet with the manager, determine essential needs, and present a report at the next council meeting on options of supporting the golf course in those emergency needs.
Okay, do I have a second? Councillor McDonald? Thank you, Councillor Parslow. I know we've had a lot of conversation with the manager already, so I wasn't sure, I was assuming we were going to anyways, but is that clear, Kevin? Yeah, okay. All right, I will call this motion to vote. It's just not work, I don't know when everybody's voted, so you have to tell me. Okay. So that's carried. It used to. All right, next reports. 8 reports. 8.1, we have report number 23-146 from the utility manager regarding request for funds, blower replacement capital project.
8.1?
Yeah, did that change?
The paper copy of your agenda is slightly different order.
Okay. All right, we'll go, that's my third mistake today.
No, no, it was not your mistake. It was
somebody over here.
You were set up for failure.
You're not going to.
So my next one is the budget assumption. Okay, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. Back to order. So our first order of business is 8.1. We have report number 23-149 from the asset management and budget clerk regarding the 2024 budget assumption. Just kind of, I know this is our second run through of a budget with this council. We kind of all started right at the beginning. So I just have Kevin just touch a little bit on the process and why we do this first.
So through your worship, first off, I'd like to thank Gail Matson for putting this together. So she's, I think it's very important to recognize that in light of our being without a CFO, Gail stepped up and done a great job for us and put this report together. So I do thank her for that. So
yeah, excellent. Thank you, Gail.
The purpose of this is that it's that first look, I guess, council has at the budget process. And it's meant to be an opportunity for council to give staff indications if there's any departures from, kind of the assumptions we have within here. If there is something that we are unaware of, something that council's thinking about, whether it's an addition, a subtraction, a change of some sort, now is a good time to discuss it as we start to move towards our first draft, which will come in December. It's important that to know that this document is really working off of the 2023 5-year plan. So we don't have all the actuals in here at this point. We are compiling a number of the requests and things that are coming in from the various departments at this point that will really show up in draft 1. But again, if there's a particular direction council wishes to give us at this point, that will certainly help us as we go into draft 1. Right now, we would be working on the premise of what we have in front of us, kind of guiding it to draft 1, see where we go. As highlighted in the report, there's going to be some pressures, some outside pressures that we're dealing with, whether it's utilities, insurances. We've got some union contracts. We've got a number of things that will put pressure on the budget. Right now, it's set for a 4.5% increase, tax increase, which is 3% general tax and 1.5 paving levy. As you're aware, that inflationary pressures have been certainly outstripped 4.5% for the most part. So we're going to have to look at that if we maintain or wish to maintain that goal of 4.5% overall tax increase. Depending where some of those other things land, it may be a challenge to balance that off. Because I anticipate, like I said, whether it's utilities or insurance and some of those things that are out of our control are going to probably outstrip that 4.5%. So, so if there's certainly any questions, I'll do my best to answer them and see where we go.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. And obviously thanks to Gail too. I know there's a lot of pressure in that department and Michelle, so thank you. I guess one thing too, just before we get into this, Kevin, it talks a lot about a 5-year plan in here. So just for, there's some new councillors and myself new on here too, like because there's a 5-year set plan, that's what we have to do every year is we set for 5 years, correct? And then, so that doesn't mean that it's written in stone. We can change that 5-year plan. Okay. Thank you. All right, Councillor Parslow.
Well, just to you, Mayor, I'm wondering how we're going to proceed with this document. So I was wondering if you wanted us maybe to confine questions page by page rather than jumping all over the place.
Well, that's what I was going to ask too, because I also had some questions, but is it, do we put the recommendation forward first and then discuss each thing page by page, or what's going to be the best process and the easiest, I guess, for you?
So through your worship, the recommendation as it sits is, one is that it's approved as presented. So if there's, again, any significant changes, then we'll need to work through that, and it'll obviously be a different motion.
Or do we make amendments each time? Because we are supposed to have something on the floor to be discussing, right?
That's correct. Any ideas?
Through your worship, if council would like to discuss the report as a whole, perhaps council would like to receive the report for discussion, and subsequent motions could then come
out of that. Okay. Somebody like to, Councillor Parslow, did you want?
I move to receive for discussion.
Second, Councillor Earl. Councillor Parslow, did you want to open us up?
Well, I'm going to, my first question is on page 2. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Whose mistake was that?
Yours.
Oh, that was me.
No one's keeping track, though.
Oh, no, they're keeping track. I will take that one again.
You take it, you see.
Councillor Parslow, could you vote?
Yeah, sorry.
Vote is closed, and it's carried. All right. Councillor Parslow. Push your button.
So under the, where the bullets are, rather than the numerical listing, the second from last bullet, which reads, the 2023 capital project carryovers.
Councillor Parslow, what page are you on?
Page 2.
Okay, thank you.
Well, on my agenda, it's page 22. Oh, okay. Sorry, it's the second page of the document.
Thank you.
So the bullet reads 2023 capital project carryovers and the 2024 capital plan adjustments. It just raises a flag to me, and I just would like your comments about it. In past discussions, both at a public meeting and privately, we note and agree, I believe, that there's been a very large capital portfolio, which is really often too much to be done in a fiscal year, which generates these capital carryovers. We know that on the horizon, we need to have a capital asset plan, which is being worked on, I know. So in the planning for this budget, I think what needs to happen is we intentionally have a smaller capital budget and retain some funds for the capital asset reserve. Rather than just transferring everything over, we have a capital plan that is, in the opinion of staff, with luck, good weather, and timely tender stuff, doable. So it's no changes here. I'm just putting that forward as something I think we as council with staff need to look out for. So that's my only comment I wanted to make on that page.
Okay.
So through your worship, just for clarity, for council's sake, is staff definitely aware of the carryovers. Definitely, we have had a number of discussions with my general managers about having realistic aspirations for capital projects, because there's no value in, we all know that there's a number of projects to do, but if we can't get them done, there's no use budgeting for them and tying up capital funds and having a program we can't deliver on. So the discussions I've had is to purposely trim that down and have attainable programs. The challenge with that is, it's that gap between what needs to be done and what can get done.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change. We can only get done what we can get done. So we can feel good about budgeting for it, but if we don't get it done, then nobody feels good about it.
That's right.
You're still on.
No.
Or did you want to go through like all your notes, or
No,
did you?
don't. I just wondered, I'm just going to do it page by page, but I wondered if other people have.
I'm just wondering if it's like if we all had notes on it, it might be easier for you to go through all your notes first,
Okay,
and then
okay.
is what I'm thinking.
Right. So
If that
if
works
I'm-
for everybody? Yeah, okay.
So on to the next page, which has that table, is where the money comes from, where the money goes to. And under recreation and cultural services, we have the 2023 figure of $9,800,023. My question again, does this include the events center component of the multiplex? Because I suggested, and I thought it was going to be actioned, that the event center, to a significant degree, not exclusively, it was seen as an economic development tool, and surely some portions of the event centre should be budgeted under economic development. My reason for suggesting this is when some of my associates do comparisons between other communities, they look at our very high recreation budget, and I say, yes, but that's distorted in that the event centre is included there. And most of the comparison communities do not have an event centre. So all I'm asking is that been actioned, or is it was just something that everybody nodded their head at the council meeting and no action has been taken to reflect that by the finance department?
So through your worship, yes, it is still inclusive of that. And my understanding is it had not been moved out, but if that was a motion of council, then we can certainly pull that aside and identify it. The subsidy and all the attributable costs to the event center is a separate item if that was the motion. I don't recall it, but that doesn't mean it. That doesn't mean it didn't happen, that's for sure.
My recollection was a wonderful finance officer who's left us
Yeah.
said, yeah, we'll get that done.
Okay.
But it was not a formal motion.
Okay. And that's fine. I think that's just an operational thing, just pulling it out and identifying it. We can do that.
Okay.
Now, the next one is
So sorry, we don't need a motion for that then? No, okay.
is a heavier item. And I want to talk about the 1.5% paving levy. Okay. So, while I support the need to catch up in our paving, I'm wondering if, given that there's other ways of financing that, but I need to be reminded that 1.5% paving levy is levied from the taxpaying community to cover the $5 million a year on extra paving over a 4-year period. 5 million, 5 million, 5 million, 5 million. Or am I wrong? What is it levying if it's not levying that?
It's for the debt servicing, isn't it? For the borrowing of those funds?
So through your worship, when we introduced the paving levy, that was at a time when we moved away from local area service bylaws, which were initiatives that we would go to residents on a street and say, we're going to repave your road. We wish you to pay a portion of that. We continued to have those initiatives turned down because folks view that more as a maintenance item as opposed to an initiative. So at that time, we switched to moving to this paving levy idea where it was a general taxation generating some revenue. We wouldn't go to each individual property owners seeking that investment.
Okay.
Just keep your button pushed.
So how is that 5 million, 5 million, 5 million, 5 million financed through debt services?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Next page, I think there's a statement there that I think I'd like to see the evidence for this. The very first bullet reads, all classes assessments were forecasted to increase by 4.5%. Is that wishful thinking, or have you got some evidence that this is happening?
So through your worship, I can't speak for my former finance officer, but I'm going to assume, which is always dangerous, that they were making that assumption based on trends that they had, she had seen. And that's all I could.
No, fair ball, Kevin. So basically then, this bullet is really transferred from that 5-year plan.
That's correct.
Fine. So can I just raise a flag of maybe we need to look at that and because I think that's, with the economy the way it is, right? There's market forces and non-market forces. I know inflation might generate it, but I wondered if you could. I just think that's a big assumption to make in this budget preparation. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I don't know what other people think.
And through your worship, that will be adjusted when we get the preview roll in November. Again, it's that making that assumption until then.
Okay. Okay. Under the, now then, this is the page, table 2, it's
Page 5.
Page 5, yeah.
Yeah.
page 5, sources of revenue. Capital revenue, grants, carry forward, and borrowing. The 2024, the variance is an 8%, shows 8%. That's all the further increase in the carry forward. Like the previous year was a 28% lift. And the 2024 is an 8%. Is this just that capital, unspent capital money?
Through your worship, that's what I understand. We had large grants budgeted in 23 as well that funded a number of things. So that's why it's larger than 24.
Just illustrates that problem. Yeah. Turning over. So the paragraph under the Peace River Agreement, which I could talk a lot more about, but I'm not going to at this time. The last sentence, though, in that first paragraph, this transition of the allocation to capital will begin in 2025 following the completion of the city's asset management plan. My note to myself was, why wait? We know that we need to be funding that. If we deal with our capital use of funds to what is reasonably possible, why wouldn't we put that in our capital asset fund this year rather than waiting another year? Just a comment, just something to reflect on. No comment, no questions. The next page is page 9. And this again is, so under services, economic development, $385,000 spent for the 2022 actuals for that. I would I would, and this I would probably want to put as a motion, that we get a breakout of that. And that is where I think also the the event center component, some portions of it could go into that account. The recreation program and swimming pool, grants and other revenues, the 239,000 grants and other revenues, that's from the PRRD, correct?
Through your worship, that's correct. That would be the sub-regional, as I understand it.
The swimming pool, the deficit, I was shocked, pleasantly shocked to see that the deficit was only 740,000. Now, as you know, I mean, I'm not the finance office, I'm not on top of all these figures. But I was carrying a notion, and it may have been an incorrect notion, that we lost about 1.6 million when the swimming pool was operating 7 days a week, when the swimming, and we didn't get that support grant from the PRRD. But that might have been its total expenditures. So if we apply the 239,000 as increased revenue, which is great, and a side comment is that needs to be higher, but that's future negotiations with PRRD. The loss of 740,000 would have been much higher had the swimming pool been, we were able to secure staff to operate it 7 days a week. Is it a reasonable inference to increase that 740 by multiplying it by 7/5?
Through your worship, I think so. I mean, you're going to have more expenses, you're going to have more revenues,
Right.
theoretically, so it's going to be a relationship.
So the swimming pool is losing about 1,900,000 or something like that. That's fine. It's an essential part of our being. I love the swimming pool.
I do agree with you, and I had spoke to the mayor this morning about it, actually. It is as good news story as it can be. The revenues and our recovery is higher than what you might anticipate.
Right. And moving on to page 10, I'll just tell you what I wrote by the side of transit. I didn't write anything. I just wrote 3 exclamation marks. Can you imagine what the deficit would be in 2027 if we hadn't made some cuts? Air transportation. Again, that just highlights the need for us to try to get some more regional financial support. I mean, a loss of $1 million in air transportation, wholly paid for by the city of Dawson Creek taxpayers. So those just highlight future work, right? Nothing on page 11, nothing on page 12. Nothing on page 13. Yeah, that's it. But I'm glad you acknowledged the work done by Gail. I don't know if I can put a face to Gail, but excellent work. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Councillor Earl. Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know if I'm going to go through. I didn't organize all my thoughts page by page, but I'll try and keep it linear, somewhat. So a lot of what I was going to touch on, Councillor Parslow did touch on. One thing I do want to highlight was when we were doing, and I think we're maybe talking about this a little bit more in close this afternoon. But when we received the Growing Communities grant of $4 million from the provincial government, I know at that time we put it into reserves with the intention of a portion of it being made available as we put some meat on the bones of our strategic priorities, being able to draw in part upon that fund so that we weren't repeat, I don't know if we'll call it a mistake of previous council, but an oversight of previous council where, we came up with strategic priorities, but we didn't necessarily allocate additional resources. So we were expecting people to do it off the side of their desk in an attempt to not repeat that short-sightedness. I think the expectation was as we built out these strategic priorities, we would use some of the Growing Communities Fund money to fund them. So one thing I wanted to mention as these priorities are starting to come together, be it the tourism piece, be it the downtown revitalization piece, the tangible capital asset management plan, I do want to keep that at the forefront of people's minds. Councillor Parslow touched on the borrowing initiative, the $5 million a year over 5 years. We're 2 years into that, and I'm thinking when we undertook that, interest rates were at historic lows. That's no longer the case. Moreover, with the amount of carryover we're seeing year to year, borrowing $5 million and paying interest on it at current rates isn't necessarily potentially the wisest move. So I don't know if I saw where that borrowing is in the budget, if if it hasn't been assumed yet.
No, so through your worship, that's, we anticipated that this might be a question or a discussion point today. So I had Michelle do a little bit of digging into a few things. So right now, the borrowing rate, if we did it today, 5.02%. Our deadline to let the PRD know if we're going to borrow is December 31st, because they do the borrowing on our behalf in the spring. So there's always that risk of when we go to borrow and we say we're going to borrow, and then, we make some assumptions on the rate of that time, and who knows what it's going to be by the time we actually borrow. Last year, or for 23, I guess I should say, we assumed a rate of 3.56 and actually turned out to be 4.15. So, 0.6, a little over half a point, it rose from the time we decided to borrow to the time we actually, the borrowing was issued. So, so you go back to that money we received from the province, we put into a capital reserve. There are some options. We don't need to borrow if we don't want to. There is some options, but we do need to make a decision prior to December 31st if we're going to borrow. We are currently getting, 5.55% on our investment on that 3.9 million that we put in. So that's a good news story, but again, it's that we need to make a decision whether we borrow or not. And like you say, the volatility of interest rates and where they're going.
Yeah, and just, with inflation, I think given where inflation ended up, the first year or two of borrowing was probably, in the aggregate, a good decision because we got work done that would have been much more expensive to get done following that inflation. But that's a moving target, and it's definitely something that I'm much less positively disposed towards moving forward. Anyway, I'll leave that in the air for council to think on. What page was it? One second, sorry. Sewer. Page 9, waste services. It looks like that we're running about $250,000 or a year on average surplus in waste services projected. That, like other utilities, is essentially supposed to kind of zero out and be self-liquidating. Moreover, the infrastructure associated with waste services, like garbage pickup, recycling pickup, isn't nearly as expensive over the long term as sewer and water, correct?
So through your worship, a couple of things on waste services. One is we're going to see a bit more of a surplus there because there's a couple of things. One is we've paid off our containers, which were part of the previous agreement. So those have been fully expended now. Although we did see some increases in some of the contracts that came forward for the new service provider. But the surplus that goes into environmental waste also helps fund a couple other things, such as downtown cleanup that we do. We have individual that goes through downtown and does that, recycling, also with the community cleanup in the spring. So that surplus helps fund those, waste initiatives as well in the community.
Okay. I'm just looking for, it's not charged as a utility, so it's not a utility capital fee like
correct. It's
you do
not
for
a
sewer and water.
Through your worship, yeah.
So,
it's not
so it does qualify as
utility fund.
operations. I'm just looking at one of those things where is there an opportunity to reduce if we're running a consistent surplus, but if that money is being spent on waste reduction or waste management services in another form, that's good. And then with respect to, Councillor Parzel's point about assessment and the assumptions around assessment are very legitimate. Given the variable or the variance in assessment over the last 10, 15 years, where between 2010 and 2015, we had assessment rising, 7 to 9% a year. And then between 2016 and 2020, it was either flat or in the negative. I think making any assumptions around that is risky business. So.
It's just that.
But
assumption.
very good work on the report, though. I appreciate the effort, and it's good to get first eyes on this early. And once we get the preview roll, we'll have a pretty good idea what we're dealing with. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Anyone else? Any other councillors? I got a bit to go through it if anybody else wants to go. Okay, I will go through. Thank you both for all your comments. Covered a lot of mine. First off, just wanted to thank Gail again and Michelle for putting this together. There's lots of great stuff and good reading in it. So I guess most of the stuff that I had was kind of covered. One, I highlighted multiple times through here just about the capital project carryover and the amount of funds that we've seen the last couple of years getting carried over and the pressure, being in the office more and working with Kevin closer, the pressure that I see puts on the team all the time to try and get these capital projects completed. I think maybe we got to be a little bit more realistic on ones that we can actually achieve. But, the other part you look at like the carryover and then we talk about the debt servicing for the paving. Like, is there a way that we could get brought to us? Like if we, some of these capital projects, if we maybe back them up a little bit and put a little bit more funds towards the paving. I think anytime we can use our own funds, especially in today's world versus borrowing, makes sense. The other is if we have to be a little tighter for the next 3 years, and I think it's 2027, the debt servicing on the event center is cleared up, which then frees up $3.5 to $4 million for capital projects as well. So I don't know, it might be something just to look at if we're, the dream or the picture of these capital projects is too big and we can't get them done. Like maybe we could just scale that back and borrow a little bit less. And I don't know, like any reports I've seen, I don't see the interest rates going down anytime soon. If anything, they're going to keep creeping up. And good to hear that we're getting a 5.5% return on our investment. So good job with that. But yeah, that was just one comment I had around that. I was never really, in favor of borrowing money for something like this. I realize our paving and our roads have, got to the point where we needed to, but the other part of that, I think of the 3% increase that's scheduled in these 5 years and the 1.5% paving levy. Like, as much as I want to keep into consideration, a mass, majority of our population can't afford increases. They're on fixed incomes. I think it's 70% of Canadians are $400 a month away from not being able to make it. So I think we have to keep that in mind. But the reality of it is also that Dawson never had a tax increase for, I think it was 10 years. So we've kind of put ourselves in this position. And, as much as, we are set to hit a 3% increase and, obviously it would be nice to achieve that. I mean, we got to keep into consideration the pressures that we're facing today because they're not going away. So if we don't adapt to that now, like, you know, it's just a higher price we're going to pay, you know, next year or a couple of years from now. So I think we got to be thinking ahead in the future with that. But I guess one thing, Kevin, with the 1.5% paving levy, so part of that goes to debt servicing, and part of that was put in place around the same time that we put the motion forward to borrow the $5 million a year. So are they two separate?
So through your worship, I would have to dig into that a little bit more and see specifically where it's going and where it's, if they're paying debt servicing out of there.
Okay.
My recollection is what I'd said previously. It was the transition of the LAS program to this to generate some funds to go towards overall paving within the community. And shortly thereafter, very, you know, much the same time as when we decided to increase the paving program and borrow the money for that. 1.5% doesn't generate, you know, a whole bunch. I mean, you know, it's $250,000, $300,000 probably in that area of what it generates each year based on our assessment. But it's a nice little addition to go into that paving program.
Yeah, okay. Oh, did you want to talk to that one, Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, as I think I was the councillor who put forward the motion for the paving levy, and it is, to your point, it happened around the same time as the $5 million per year borrowing, but it is separate, and it was intended to replace the LAS. But the reason it's a paving levy as opposed to just tacking another 1.5% on general tax revenue was so that we as councils would be constrained. You know, if it goes into a segregated fund that has to be spent on paving, which is something that had been underfunded in years prior, the public could have some confidence that, you know, we were constrained as council to spend the money on paving specifically. Now, whether that goes directly towards capital or debt servicing for paving, much like the Peace River allocation, it counts as capital effectively. So that was kind of the rationale for that.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Councillor Parzo, you wanted to speak to that as well?
Yeah, just clarification. It could be just wording. So again, that the same topic, not to jump into new, page 3 of 20, background information. So if I read the first bullet, the 2024 residential variable tax rate was projected representing a 4.5% increase, which includes the 1.5% paving levy. I'm wondering why that last, see, the way I began to read it is that you've increased the paving levy, right? The paving levy is set at 1.5, right? You're not putting a, are you increasing that by, is that benefiting from the overall 4.5%, or is it a fixed amount?
So,
I guess that makes...
yeah, so through your worship, I think, like you say, it's just how it's framed. Overall, as it's projected, residents would see a 4.5% tax increase. Within that, 1.5% of that comes out and is put into the paving levy. So it's 4.5 total, 3% general, 1.5 specific to the paving levy.
So the paving levy is getting 1.5 last year, and that's been increased by 1.5%.
No, it's still 1.5%.
Because the way I would read this too would be if it's 1.5%, we're not increasing it then.
No, it's still 1.5%.
So it's not an increase,
There hasn't
which-
been a change on that. And that was a directive of council originally.
Because the way I read this too is the 3% increase is annually. So it'll be 3% annually. So we're not increasing 1.5. We only use a 1.5 one-time paving levy, but it's now on our taxes. So it's not an increase each year because it's now, we paid it last year, right?
Right.
So
We're
that
going to
one,
continue. Can I play tag with you on this?
Yeah.
Because this is an alarming thing to me, right? In the interpretation. Because we know the horrendous costs of living increases, right, etc. A whole bunch of dynamics going on. So I'm assuming that 4.5, the variable tax rate, residential tax rate, is going to go up 4.5% over what it was.
It's not.
should just be 3%.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you, right, yeah.
Is it? Should it be 3? Because I'm wondering if it should be. I think it should be 4.5%. The 1.5% levy that was raised last year, as you reminding us what its purpose was, which I now remember, that's still going to be 1.5% of the tax yield, isn't it? But you're not adding to that 1.5%. See, I'm assuming my colleague makes a reasonable assumption perhaps in a different way. I think are we applying 4.5% to the general revenue, or are we applying 3% and you're applying the extra 1.5 to the pavement levy? Is the pavement levy, to use an expression often used, being double dipped in a sense, but it's not been taken out of, it's been put in? I would have thought that you wanted to keep it constant. We need that 4.5% for all the other things.
So through your worship, the way it, as I understand it, the way it's constructed right now, 4.5% increase. So if you look at the residential variable rate, 6.5 to 6.8 per thousand, 4.5 increase, and that's inclusive of the 1.5. So it's 4.5 total, 1.5, a portion of that comes out. 1/3 of it comes out and goes to the paving levy.
So annually.
Yeah, happens every year.
So the paving levy is increasing another 1.5. It was 1.5 last year and another 1.5. So, because it's an increase,
Yeah.
right? We've set a 4.5 increase. So if 1.5 of that is
Yeah.
paving levy for the next 5 years, that paving levy will be at 7.5% for the gain over the.
Or was it accumulated?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Because if, by the way, it's worded in here, if it's an increase, and it was an increase last year, we're at now 3% paving levy.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, because if we separate that out as a percent, or a dollar per thousand, and that was set at 1.5, and now we've taken that rate, which is inclusive, added 4.5%, that paving levy is continuing to increase along
Cool.
with it. So, yeah,
Okay.
we'll look at that and pull that out. I see what you're saying.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to go through my notes, which most were covered. Or was there more questions around that one, Kevin? No? Okay.
Can I just, 1 second, before we move on from that?
Councillor
Thank
Dom?
you, Your Worship. So, just so I can wrap my head around this, all we're saying is new taxes received in 2024, 1/3 of new taxes received will be specific to paving.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's not that an actual line item of paving levy is going up another 1.5% every year. We're just saying that specifically new taxes received, 1/3 of new taxes received will be specific for paving. That's what we're saying. Okay.
And we'll make sure we clarify and articulate that in draft language
Okay.
and break it out so we can be.
Okay. Thank you.
So can I interject there?
Councillor Parslow?
So am I correct then, saying that there's just a 3% increase in revenue to cover all the other aspects of our budget? If that's the case, then I am saying that we have a need to have a much higher percentage lift in the residential tax rate. 3%, right, means a reduction of services. Now, whilst I believe that there are some services that we could look at, overall, the vast majority, unless we suddenly get out of some aspects of our work, if we don't provide the funding, it means some things have to be dropped. I may be double talked there because I think Council knows there's a couple of areas I think we can fine tune significantly. Other areas, I am at a loss as to how you can, but the inflation and compensation adjustments, 3% isn't going to do it.
Well, no, and that's why I touched on that, like keeping in mind those that are on fixed incomes. But I think Kevin touched on it right away at the beginning too, saying that, with all the pressures we're facing, they're going to, I guess what I'm assuming, which Kevin said assumptions are not great, but is that you're going to take this back and try and meet the budget, and you'll come back to us and be like, look, if we stay at a 3%, we're going to have to find this amount of value in our services. We're going to have to cut that, or we're going to recommend that we move our taxes to, like, I'm assuming that's the next step?
Yeah,
or do
through
you,
your worship, I see coming back with some options, right? One is meeting, like you say, the 3%. What does that mean?
yeah.
Alternatively, and get some direction from council at that
Okay.
point.
Yeah, because then we'll have the facts and you'll have them.
We'll have more information with all the information that's come in from the various departments on various initiatives and changes, because there's always adds and subtracts that you go through, right?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, I will just jump through mine really quick here. Yeah, there was page 9. I just, on the 2022 actuals, it was nice to see the revenue coming in versus the expenditures on lots of them. Like, there's obviously some areas that, the city's done a great job running those services. Some you can't, right? But it was nice to see how it was broke out like that, the air transportation, for example, that there was $740,000 revenue. The arenas, same thing. Like, you look at the expenditures of the arenas at 1.3 million and you're like, wow, that's a lot. But then you take the revenues of 900,000 out of that and it's just a net cost to the taxpayers of 400. So it was just good to see that. Like, not saying that it's perfect, but it is good. I mean, there's obviously some of our team that's done a great job achieving this. So, and that's coming out of COVID, right? So I believe, like, on all the direction I've seen from you, Kevin, to the team is like some of these numbers should grow too, right, as we advance. So I just wanted to say good job on those, and it was nice to see that. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I think that's basically all I have for now. I mean, I've highlighted, like I said at the beginning, a lot on the capital carryover, so I look forward to seeing something on that. But that's all I have for this for now. So
Perfect.
So thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to the staff too. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I appreciate what they've done.
All right. If there's no more discussion, I will. Councillor Earl?
Sorry, Your Worship. Councillor Parslow made a point about the economic development line item being broken out for us to view. Does that require a motion, or is that something you'd like some direction on, Kevin? Pardon me, through you to staff.
So through your worship, I don't think we need a motion. I think I was looking at it and thinking the exact same thing in my head, so there's some clarity. So I think we can easily, we'll make a lot of this commentary that obviously as we went through this, we'll make sure that we try and answer a lot of that in our next draft, because we typically have, those questions, comments of council, and here's what just for clarity, right? So
Okay.
we'll make sure we bring that forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. So I guess the next we've already, like that was a motion for discussion and we've already voted on that. So do we, to keep with the policy, do we now need to make a recommendation?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Parslow.
I move the report number 23-149 from the Asset Management and Budget Coordinator, read 2024 Budget Assumptions Report be received further. 1, that the 2024 budget assumptions be approved as presented. 2, that the 2024 financial plan be based on the principles and values included in the city's vision, mission, and guiding principle documents, as well as other bylaw and policy documents. And 3, that the methodology used in preparing the 2024 financial plan be based on an integrated and long-term approach to setting tax rates, fees and charges, and service provision.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. I have Councillor McDonald. Any discussion on this? All right, I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. I didn't see if it was carried. It's carried. You have one other motion?
This relates to budget. Maybe it doesn't need a motion. Is that up to you and Mayor to say? But one thing I'd like to have in front of me, and I know it will change as we get more fine-tuned information as it relates to assessment. I would like to know what 1 mil generates in each of the categories of assessment. And I would also like to, on that same sheet, to see what a 1% increase in taxes for each category would yield.
That's something that we need a motion for, Kevin, or is that something that could just be done up easily?
So through your worship, something we can bring back and draft one again?
Yeah.
Just commentary.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, you said the first one, 1 mil. 1 mil rate?
1 mil rate, yes.
What is that equivalent to in dollars?
What increase in dollars does that, if I was to say, move that we increase the heavy industrial taxation rate by 1 mil, what would that generate in dollars? What would it for light? What would it for residential? And then also, what would
1%.
a 1% increase be?
Okay.
I just like to have it at my fingertips on a sheet, and I think it would be useful for all of us, because as you know, maybe it's my past associations, but people do ask me a lot about budget, right? And they jump from the percentage increase to a mill rate, right? And I want to make sure that we're doing an apples to apples conversation. You know what I mean?
So through your worship, might be the best time to do that might be when we get the preview roll in November.
Whatever.
And we've got at least a starting point on understanding it's a preview, but at least it's something. So then we can certainly get that to council.
Yeah.
Do you need a motion for that, or is that something? No? Okay.
I think I'm fine.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. You're welcome.
You're a good guy. Except for when you make mistakes.
I don't make mistakes. All right, our next order of business is 8.2. We have report number 23-150 from the Financial Service Manager regarding 2023 tax sale results, September 25th, 2023. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation that report number 23-150 from Financial Services Manager regarding 2023 tax sale results be received for information.
I have a second. Councillor Apollonio. Any discussion? Call that motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 8.3, we have report number 23-152 from the General Manager of Development Services regarding request for street lighting 3rd Street and 95th Avenue. I guess just before we go with this one, Kevin, I know we've had some discussion around Well, this is, I think, the second or third time we've seen requests for streetlights. Like, do you feel like maybe it's a direction that we should guide staff to get like a lighting plan done for the city where we can look at, okay, this is where we need to go and this can be done over 8 years and we should invest $500,000 for the next 8 years? Or like, how do you see it going? Because I feel like, well, one, the beautiful work the city's done with the lights it spiked a lot of people's care and interest about it, and it's brought like that pride into the community with it. So they see that, and those new streets, it sticks out so much. So, like, where do you want to go? Because I feel like this is, I think, the second one this year, but I feel like they're going to continue to grow.
Through your worship, I agree. We're getting more and more requests for lighting. Again, I think our lighting that we're doing is, like you say, certainly making people aware of what it could be. And then, with the constant challenges that our community's facing, along with others, with increased crime or perceived, the lighting, the safety aspects. So, what we've been doing to date is as we do a road project, we've included that street lighting as part of it. But there's other streets, like you see the request in front of you, that, maybe they're not getting a newly paved road right away, but would like to see some lighting. So, we've got a really good handle on where our gaps are. We know that. With our GIS system, we know where we don't have lighting. We could develop a bit more of a capital plan for that. It goes back to our discussion through the budget there's just means we'll be pulling back on something else.
Yeah.
And there's just so many competing factors. Now, I did mention local area service, which is an initiative program. Something like this street lighting, where a resident comes and says, geez, I'd like an improvement in my area. We don't have street lighting, or I've got a couple BC Hydro lights. I'd like to have proper street lighting. That would be an option to explore with a local area service, where you would go out to the property owners and ask for them to contribute towards that. Our policy that we have for LAS would certainly indicate that something like this would be an appropriate fit. It's just whether there's an appetite from the residents or property owners to take that on.
So in this case, like, is that something that we could go out to those members that would be affected from the community on this street and ask them if they're willing to contribute partially, or I'm sure there's a formula for that?
Yeah, there is, and it's quite a process to do. That's another aspect of the local area service, is that there's a lot of work. You have to create bylaws, you have to do notices. It's fairly significant. So, but the intent is when people are asking for an improvement, there's an option for them to contribute towards it.
Okay. So I guess before we go to deal with this one, like, is there a direction that you would, like, and obviously it sounds like you already have the stats, you could probably just get them put together.
I think if council as a whole has a wish to see more lighting projects completed other than just what comes along with a repaved road, I think that would be good to hear, and that would certainly steer our capital plan. It just gives us some more guidance on the wishes of council.
Okay. For me, I definitely like to learn more about it, but Councillor Parslow?
Well, I certainly appreciate the notion of a long-term lighting plan. First of all, I correct me if I'm wrong, but any of this, where there's a new paving project of a major nature, like we've been doing at 95th, 96th and stuff, street lighting is automatically installed. It doesn't require any local levy. Also, a sidewalk on one side of the road is put in automatically. So our community standard is road, street lights, sidewalk. So any particular lighting initiative will be synced with this, because you have a road development plan that spans, what, 10 years, or is it 20 years?
Yeah, through your worship, we've got, from the planning documents we have, we probably have, 10 to 15 years worth of projects ahead of us that are kind of identified.
And each of those projects where it's involving road there'd be streetlights put in?
Yeah, through your worship, our process of going in is when we go in to do it complete, whether that's underground servicing that needs to be replaced at the time,
Right.
and above ground.
Right. That's good, because it's a good standard. And it, as I think was said, that it transforms neighborhoods. I am very uncomfortable with something you said, though, Kevin. It's the first time since you've been CAO that I've been very uncomfortable with something you said. It's like a dance, you know. We move forward in getting rid of local levies for roads, but then we move back and go to have local levies for lighting. I would need a lot of persuasion to go back to a local levy for anything. I think we should have community standards that we're working towards as a collective, and some people who need the lighting shouldn't be held hostage to those who don't want to see a $10 increase in their tax bills. So whilst I would support a street lighting plan coordinated in large part perhaps with the road one, but where there's needs, right? So we don't waste future money, have a plan, but not a local levy. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess just before, so we can get something on the floor here, Kevin, like, would it be fair to put some kind of motion forward that would allow the staff to bring back to us in the first budget what it would look like to add street lighting over the next however many years you would recommend by looking at our reports or what the information we have, so that we can see what that does to the budget? Like, or how do we, because it's tough to, like, I personally think we should look at it, but I don't know what that means to the budget. Because if you came back and said, wow, it's $3 million a year for 10 years, we got to remove all of this, then that's a different discussion. So I guess what's the easiest way for you?
So through your worship, we, internally, we've had those discussions very recently about street lighting where because we saw these requests coming as well. I think what it boils down to is that we need to look, we need to just identify the bigger scope, approximately how much, like you say, we know areas where there is inadequate lighting, how much is it going to cost, and start to say, okay, if we want to accomplish this over the next 10 years, how much are we going to have to chip away at, annually to do so? And that will tell us what kind of an impact that's going to have on our budget and what, other areas are going to be, whether that's paving reduced, because it all comes out of general.
Yeah.
Other areas that we have to limit.
So to put something forward like that, is that fair to give your team enough time to put something together before, like, the next step of budgeting?
Yeah, I think we
realistic.
can certainly conceptualize that for the first draft. Get a sense of what that looks like.
Okay, did somebody want to take a stab at a motion here, or do you want me to?
No, go for it.
Councillor Earl.
Oh, I had a comment about Councillor Parslow's note on the LAS thing, but I didn't. If you want to make a motion, I guess.
You can
make okay.
Yeah, make your comment.
The only thing I was going to say is I generally agree. The one thing is, if there was a neighborhood that wanted to expedite, if we do up a plan and have them street lights for them in year 8, and they wanted to expedite it and they were willing to undergo the process of an LAS, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I do agree that, carving out a new segregated tax fund to take the place of the LAS because of its lack of success and to then turn around, but then there's LAS, is counterproductive. But yeah, that was the only note I wanted to make. I could see, if residents of a neighborhood got together and wanted to see the issue addressed with some urgency and were willing to kick in extra, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Councillor McDonald, are you ready to put a motion forward?
I just wanted one clarification on the paving. Thank you, Your Worship. So when we do the paving and we're adding lights and sidewalks, is that just replacement of existing lighting, or is it if there is no lighting, we're adding lighting automatically?
So through your worship, it's kind of, it's both. So lighting is happening. Most areas that we go into, the residential areas, there's not adequate lighting. Typically, you've got 1 or 2 lights that are on wooden poles, which are BC Hydro lights. And so it's pretty much automatic that when we go into residential areas, that lighting is going to be redone. Even into Camarlo, where we went, they had existing lighting. Poles were probably 40 years old, rust, structurally needed to be upgraded with LED, so they were replaced as well. So it's pretty much an automatic that we go in and do it.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody? I guess I'll make, or do you want to?
No, I'm not sure what you're asking for.
Oh, okay.
I've lost track of it.
Yeah, maybe I'll try this, is make a recommendation that we direct city staff to look into a street lighting plan, over the next foreseeable, whether that's 8 or 10 years in the future, on a realistic goal to achieve that and what impacts that would do to our capital budget moving forward, but more so for the 2024 budget. Does that cover?
Yeah, and so through your worship, the report that you have in front of you, does that recommendation replace this one?
Well, my thoughts would be is that you, I guess, I was assuming, would be that we would, on that report, you could come back and be like, look, this is where we see it. It's going to take 7 years. So we could put this one in this year,
Sure.
or this one in
Where
2025.
this fits into the queue.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, just
But
wanted
you
to
might
clarify.
look at that and then come back to us and say like, okay, we appreciate that this street needs it, but this street is, has way more access and, might be a priority level, but yeah, that's
Nope,
kind of what I
that's
was
fair.
thinking.
Just wanted to be clear.
Okay. All right, second, Councillor Parslow. Any discussion? No? All right, I will call that motion to vote. The vote is closed. It's carried. I'm actually just going to take a quick 5-minute break and then we'll come back in. So 23 back to order. Next order of business was 8.4. I had to make sure I got the right sheet here. Report number 23-146 from the utility manager regarding request for funds blower replacement capital project. Councillor Parslow.
Move the report number 23-146 from the Utilities Manager, a request for funds, blower replacement capital project be received. Further, that Council approve the funds of $550,000 plus tax in the 2024 budget cycle for the purchase and installation of the aeration blowers at the wastewater treatment plant.
I have a second. Councillor McDonald. Just wanted to thank Devin and his team for bringing us forward to looking ahead into the future and realizing where we're at and how much time these take. So thank you. Councillor Parslow, did you want to speak to it?
Well, yes, it's just making sure that we can order these things in time for installation.
Yeah.
Basically, that's how I read it, and it makes sense. We have done it with some other projects, being able to acquire things before it's too late and wait another year.
Thank you. Councillor Earl.
I'd echo those sentiments. Certainly, there's not a lot of things we absolutely have to do, but water is one of them. So being forward-thinking in that respect is always welcome. Just a question with respect to the blowers, what is the anticipated life cycle, time they're viable for? Is it based on hours used or is it years?
Devin?
Yeah, through your worship, thanks. I have to give credit to Stacy, our new GM, and Cyril for authoring this report. They did a fantastic job on it. I think you have a lot of the information you need in here. The blowers have been running, there's 3 of them there, as you see in the report. One runs for one part of the system, one runs for the other, and one runs in standby. They run 24/7. They don't shut off. These particular blowers, a couple of our standbys, have been in place since 2011. Some of the previous ones are even older, so they're about 15 years. They do last a long time. We're looking to get some locally sourced ones so we can make maintenance and operations a little bit easier for us.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? No? All right, I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next order of business, 8.5, we have report number 23-153 from the Parks and Facilities Manager regarding transfer of capital funds from the Memorial, Kin, and Curling Rink upgrades to the Memorial Arena HVAC upgrades. Councillor McDonald.
Well, thank you, Worship. I'd like to move the report number 23-153 from the Parks and Facilities Manager regarding transfer of capital funds from the Memorial, Kin, and Curling Rink upgrades to the Memorial Arena HVAC upgrades be received. Further, the council approved the transfer of $84,727 from the capital funds for the upgrades of a Memorial, Kin, and Curling Rink to be transferred to the capital funds for the Memorial Arena HVAC system.
Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick, any discussion? No, I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next order of business, we have bylaws 9.1, permissive tax exemption bylaw number 4570, 2023 for consideration of adoption. Councillor Earl, second Councillor Kemp. Any discussion? I'll call this motion to vote. Oh, it changed.
Display changed randomly.
Yeah. Do you got all of them in?
In favor.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh. Vote is carried. Councillor Parslow is in favor.
You missed it.
I closed it
Closed
before.
it off?
That's my, what, fifth mistake today? What's your checklist out there? How many ticks do I got?
No, that's enough. I'm not going to accept that.
Oh, you gave me a free one. Next order of business is 10 mayor's business, 10.1 mayor's updates. The good couple of weeks. So start off, had the community tourism planning workshop, which was held at the KPAC. And a couple things that blew me away being in there. One was the amount of people that attended it. You hear of the community, and I've seen us put on things, and you don't get a lot of participation, but they had to add some chairs and paper. So I think there was 30 plus, I'm just guessing, 30 plus people in there, but I only got to stay for the first bit, but it was some amazing dialogue, and I did not want to leave. Like it was very valuable, and just the engagement from everybody. Destination BC put it on, but just the whole engagement from everybody that was participating. It was amazing to see, and there's going to be another one as well, I believe, in January. So. Those that didn't attend that and would like to go, and I think those that did attend it and want to go back in January, there'll be some new information too. So it was amazing. Second, the Tumbler Ridge Pump Track grand opening. Just wanted to send a congratulations out to Mayor Kukalka and his council and the whole team of Tumbler Ridge for this project, and just congratulating them on their grand opening. I did speak to him the day of and just apologize that we weren't able to attend, but just wanted to congratulate him. So he was very receptive to that and said thank you. Next, the National Women's U18 Hockey Launch event. That was a couple weeks ago. So a huge event for our community coming November 5th to the 11th. I wanted to give a shout out to the team at the Ovintiv and the organizing team for this hockey event. It's a group of residents from Dawson Creek that have come together to help facilitate this, and it wouldn't happen without them. They've put a lot of effort and time in, so I just wanted to thank them. The other part is I didn't bring my stats with me, but I was doing a little bit of research on ladies hockey and female hockey and in Canada, and I think it was in this is going off my memory, which is not good, so don't quote me on this, but I believe in 1990 or early on when they had their first big event, there was 9,000 female participants across Canada in female hockey, and this year, Ryan, what is it, 100,000 registered. So it's just an amazing thing to see, how much the world is evolving and things are changing. But in Canada, to see how big ladies hockey is getting and how amazing this hockey will be, but not even that, just the leadership that it brings, to the female sector and the way things are changing. It's just an amazing thing to see and be part of and how it's changed. So it was just something that caught my attention when I was looking up the stats on it. So I thought I would share that. Next, Northern Lights College, just wanted to congratulate them as well on their second annual rodeo, which was held at the end of September, the long weekend. So their second annual college rodeo, another huge success, but just an amazing partnership to have that the city has with Lakota Center and Northern Lights College and bringing this event forward for the second time. So it's great for that industry and just great for the college, and just a huge shout out to Todd, Jesse, and the team there for what they do, for youth and those college students, but also for what they do to our community. Having them in our community is an asset more than just the education part. They live and breathe our community and doing what's right. So, and not just our community, the region. So, I just wanted to thank them. Also, the Truth and Reconciliation Week, Northern Lights College had another leading thing. They, it was almost daily. They had an event, an educational piece around truth and reconciliation. I was able to attend one. And it was just amazing to be part of and to see and really just to educate myself a little bit more every time I go and attend these events on the whole truth and reconciliation and, the history of where it was and where it is today. So that was good. We had a leaders table meeting. So that was an initiative started, I believe, a couple of years ago, but we just had our first one this year in May, and this was the second leader tables meeting. So it's all the leaders pretty much from the whole Peace region. So whether it's mayors or First Nation leaders, some council were there, the regional district was there. So we just get together, kind of just in the really early stages of the planning of it and what it'll look like moving forward. But the last meeting was a big overview of the region, some of the challenges that we're facing, and some discussion about where we see it going forward. So that was good. Next, water facility tour. I had a tour with Vardan, who was in here the one day for council, who hung out with us for the day. I went to the water facility tour with Stacy and Devin, took time of their day to go through there. But Brian, I don't know his official title, but he's one of senior operator at the water treatment plant. So I just wanted to thank Brian for taking his time out to really walk us through every part of it. And I know it didn't work out for everybody to attend that one, but I would really recommend if council wanted to set it up. It's second time I've got to do it, and I learned a lot more this time too. It was just amazing to see what they do, and gives you a whole new respect from turning your tap on at your house to how it all comes out. So I just wanted to really thank Brian and the team out there for what they do, and the facility is just so well taken care of too. It's very clean. You can tell there's a lot of pride in the facility out there. So I just wanted to give a huge shout out to that team out there. Next, I had a meeting with Jack Walsh, the general manager from the Dawson Creek Golf Course. Just it was a brief update just on all the things they're working on, and it was just amazing to hear actually his wish list and his vision. Not just his, their whole directors and where the golf course is going is very exciting. There's a lot of talk about youth and the youth programming and where it was this year, but where they see it moving forward. Their partnership with Special O and the snowshoeing that they want to develop out there. But also a big part of that snowshoeing is the Special O. There's going to be some Special O races with the snowshoeing. It's just kind of at the beginning stages, but there's a real opportunity that it can open some doors for the Special O program in British Columbia and maybe bring some of their programs to Dawson Creek for their competitions. I know they've traveled. Last year, I think they were down in Kamloops and somewhere else for bowling and for a couple of different things. I think skiing was one, but just an amazing, amazing program, the Special O, but it was just great to see it partnering out at the golf course and just a great thing for our community. So I just wanted to touch on that. I had a meeting with Lynette from YMCA. She's at Prince George. She was up here doing some work in the area. So I did have a meeting with her when I originally got into office, just about the future YMCA in the area and childcare services and the need for it. So it was just kind of an update on that. They are working on a couple things that I can't say yet, but there could be some exciting things coming, and they're just waiting for some answers on some of their projects in the Dawson Creek area. So they are very active in our area already through the school districts. At some of the schools they're working, and there is a bigger vision to that. So hopefully in the next while there'll be an announcement and something great for the community. Although they already do a lot of great things for the community. Next, I met with Gord Mowat, who is the new district superintendent for P&G, Pacific Northern Gas, in this area. So I went for lunch with him, and I shouldn't say I went for lunch, but I went and met with himself, and then Kirk Branvolt and Sean Peterson also joined. So that's kind of their leadership team at P&G. So just had a real good conversation about, one got to meet Gord and what their vision is and plan is for the area, and just build that relationship. So it was nice to go out, hear what they're doing, and they're very forward thinking, and they want to work with us on projects as well. So it was nice. The mayor's social media channels. So this is a huge shout out to this council and Melissa really for moving this forward. But one of the visions when I got into office was not even visions, but one thing we all talked about is, and that we heard from our community is that us being open and transparent and having open lines of communication to our residents. So, one way we felt that was right was having a communications person, which is a key role moving forward on bridging those gaps for our residents, for organizations, for groups, for in our city itself, for all of it. So we started, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, we just did some recordings last week, so it'll start to get a little bit more active, but a mayor's office social media page, which will be led by the city. So what that means is in 3 years from now, when there's a new election and potentially a whole new council up here, is that database will be owned by the city, not by a council or mayor myself. So then that next council and mayor has that database to move forward, and it can continue to grow. So that was kind of the philosophies behind it. So it's very early stages. We've done some recordings on just visions and that, but we really want it to be open to the community on what they want to see on that page, what they want to hear about the community, where they could ask questions, and I can answer them, or we could have city staff answer them, or councilors answer them. Like really, a page for the city. So that's exciting. There's lots of exciting things. Melissa's has a vision and a passion for it, which is it's just amazing to work with her and see. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Next, Mayor's Project, another thing that I do monthly with Jessica Kimball, who offers her time to go out, and her vision for this project was to showcase local businesses, local organizations in the community. It's something that she completely volunteers to do. She takes time out of her day and drags me along with her, and we get to go to all these different businesses, nonprofit organizations. And for me, I'm thankful she does it, because it is absolutely amazing to be out there and spending time with these individuals and organizations in our community that are the, part of the backbones to who we are. So I'm forever thankful for her for coming up with this idea, and I'm blessed that I get to partake in it. So But the last one we did was on September 26th, so we went to Vintage. I met with Jessica there, and her son was there as well, so it was amazing just to hang out and visit with her. I've known her previously since she moved here. Her and her family moved here from Vernon. I think it was a couple of years ago now, and she's been a great asset to our community. She's about giving back. She does a lot for our community. Next, I got to go see Angelina at Networks Ministries, so it's always so eye-opening and pleasant to walk into that facility and see, it's just amazing. There was probably 15 or 20 residents in there working, volunteering their time to help make this community a better place in all areas. They work with, I believe they work with the school district, Northern Health. They're really, just about trying to do what's right in our community and helping all individuals out. So, it's just an amazing program to see what they do. And for those that haven't been there or don't know about it, I would get a hold of Angelina. She would love to give tours. And if there's, companies out there or individuals that want to help, whether it's volunteering or some compensation to them, they always need a room. They give out a lot of their food program, and then their store is just amazing. Like, it's set up just like an actual store where individuals that can come in and pick from things in a very nice environment. Like it's nice. So yeah, it's very respectful and open to all and very inviting. So if you ever have the time, go in there. Angelina and her team is amazing. Next, I went to Coeur Lanes and got to hang out with Tim and Aaron and Greg for a little bit. And those that have lived in this community know those three like I do. They're another organization in our community that does so much for our community, just to make our city a better place. So I got to hang out with them. They showed me a little bit of their back room and where they build what they build there. And yeah, it was just amazing to see. So I just want to thank Tim, Aaron, Greg, and their whole team there. They have an amazing team at Coeur Lanes and been in this community for a lot of years and have given back to our community a lot. So next I went to Rentco Equipment, met with Colby down there, had a little bit of tour of their facility, and another great organization that gives back a lot to our community. And it was just good to see. I obviously I've known of Rentco. They've been in our community for years. I've rented things there, but just to go in there and see what they do, and they do a lot more than rent things. They're into sales of equipment as well. But just another great organization and a great team down there that does a lot for our community. And then I ended going to Longhorn Oilfield Services. So I got I've known Dan McLeod for years. But I got to meet this summer at the exhibition society, the rodeo. I got to hang out with Dan a little bit, but meet his son Mason, who I've met with before, or I met him before, but haven't got to spend much time with him. So I got to really get to know him a little bit this year. And then we met with Danny, their manager, down there when I was down there, and another organization that we're very fortunate to have in our community. They do a ton for our community, whether it's, employing people, is a big part. But what they do for nonprofits and to make to help residents and to make our community a better place, it's pretty impressive what they do, and they do it quietly. They're not out there front and center on everything saying what they do. So to learn a little bit more about what they offer, and I get to see it a lot, almost at every event you're at in the community, there's something from Longhorn. So it was neat to see a tour of their facility, and drove by it 100 times, but to go in there and see the facility, it was really neat. So I just wanted to thank them for taking the time for that. So so that was it for that one. Next, Youth Roundtable. We had a Youth Roundtable meeting, I think it was last week. So a lot of great dialogue. There was 12 or so youth mentors in the community, so groups that work directly with youth. It was Yeah, it was amazing, actually. It was an hour and a half. There was some unbelievable dialogue going around. And that was kind of the first one we've had since the spring. The spring was just a more, bigger overview. This was a little bit more, just not directed. There was no agenda. It was just more about youth and what everybody's doing for youth moving forward and the importance of youth in our community. So we've decided to meet again, and this isn't something, was my initiative. It was a community member's initiative is about doing these mayor's roundtable. And I'm very clear about that when I'm in there. If they want them and they see value in them, then I want them to do them. I'll do whatever they need for us as a council to be part of it. And myself. So we're doing another one in November because there was some really exciting ideas that were going around the table about some maybe initiatives that we could do as groups or as a whole community to educate youth and help youth. So I won't touch too much more on that because it's definitely wasn't my idea and it's early stages, but we'll see how we're meeting again in November as well. So. Next, getting tired of hearing me talk because next is Lawrence meatpacking tour. So I reached out to Ryan LaFond and Dan Strasky just about going out there. And I went out there just initially to meet them, and they're a group that's been in our community for a long time, and I've been trying to get out and meet as many of the community as I can. So they invited me out there. So I went out there, which I thought was going to be for, a half an hour meeting, and it turned into a 2.5 hour tour of their facility. It was another, thing that's just eye-opening, right? Like I've lived here my whole life. Lawrence Meatpacking has been around my whole life, and you've seen them do what they do for our community. They do everything. Their families that are involved are, very community orientated. So just to be out there and to be honest, to see the passion behind Ryan when he was giving me his tour it blew me away. How he knew every little aspect of it. And then to learn from his grandpa and his dad, which they've instilled in Ryan and Dan about the whole history of it. It was just, I was forever, appreciative of them for taking the time, but also to give me the education and just the history piece of right from when it started to where it is today. And then to walk through their facility. It was absolutely amazing just to see everything that they do and how it comes in, and they do everything right on site. It's phenomenal. There's minimal waste. They've thought of everything, and they know the history of every part of it, when it was started and where this part was started. So I just really wanted to, to give a shout out to that whole Lawrence team. They also, I think they employ 90 team members in our community, and in Fort St. John, they have a facility there. But just really wanted to thank them for taking that much time. I know they're busy. So for them to take that much time, it was just amazing. And I think Kevin gets the privilege of going on a tour too with them. It didn't work out that we could both go that one, but they've also offered a tour to Kevin as well. So it was just amazing to see. So I just want to thank Ryan, Dan, and their whole team out there. Next, Site C accommodation market sounding. So I actually have another one this week. So this is just a market sounding committee put together by Site C on the decommissioning of the Site C camp services. So this one I did as a regional district director with the chair and vice chair. So there was a lot of talk around where that facility is going. They're looking for community ideas. I have another meeting with them this week, I believe, as far as sitting as the mayor. So this one was about regional district, but there was lots of discussion around where that facility is going. There's lots of different ideas. One question that came up from us at the regional district is before we could have a better understanding of if that facilities or part of those facilities could be used in our community or the regional district. We just wanted to know about more about what the lifespan is on those facilities. They were put in place for 10 years. So if they only got 5 years life left on them, we kind of just want to have an understanding of where that is before we can, just brainstorm a little bit more on areas where we could see those working in our community. So Yeah, so that's all I had for those updates. I don't know if anybody had any questions. No? All right, so next was 10.2, memo from Mayor Dober regarding council appointment update, Dawson Creek and Area Child Care Action Plan. Oh, somebody wanted to, Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the proposed motion that Councillor Parslow be listed as alternate to Councillor Kempf for the Dawson Creek and Area Child Care Action Plan.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor McDonald? Any discussion? Councillor Parsley, you're all right with that? Your name being put forward?
I'd do anything for Amy.
Oh. All right. Good thing the mic wasn't on. Just kidding. All right, I will call that motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. All right, next order of business 11, Chief Administrative Officer operational updates. Kevin.
Through your worship, I don't really have any today to provide, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions to Kevin? Counts. Uh-oh. You opened
hey, buddy.
something.
No. No, through your worship to Kevin. The playgrounds, Kin Park and Rotary Park playgrounds, are we expecting, I know the tentative date for those was mid-October. Those obviously passed. Are we expecting those to be completed before we've got snow on the ground, or what's the...
I'm going to look over to Ryan, as he probably has an update.
You go, Ryan.
Hi. Through your worship, yes, so they're underway. The playgrounds, my understanding is that the rubberized base at the Kin won't be done till next year, just to the nature of the temperature and to the install time, but they're underway. I believe that down at Rotary, the base is different, so we'll hopefully be able to get that open or available for people shortly.
Okay. Thank you. Abby has thoughts on the delay. She's not happy. Thanks.
Councillor Parslow.
Yes, one of the topics that the mayor touched upon prompted me to ask this question of staff. Boundary expansion, without naming any particular facility, was a direction of a council.
Closed.
Last term, I think it was. Is that active or is it dropped?
Through your worship, it's active, and I'll be coming back to council in the coming meetings to provide an update.
Okay. And just talking about community assets, I informed the mayor that it would be timely for council plus, and I was thinking of staff and Ryan and tourism, come down and see the completed indoor range and learn about the opportunities that will be flowing once that facility is given the stamp of approval by the firearms officer. It's tremendous. And so whenever the mayor is able to go, I'd like, if possible, as many council members and tourism to come. It might blow your mind away, no pun intended.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Once we get some dates, we'll send it out to all of council.
Don't let that pun hit the target, Charlie.
All right, any other questions for Kevin? No? All right, next order of business, 12 diary. Anything diary? No. Next 13 consent calendar. So before we get into the consent calendar, I just wanted to touch base a little bit. Tab will guide me and correct me if I am wrong on some, or just more just some education to council on how the consent calendars worked. So when, couple things, when there's letters, maybe not directed right to mayor and council, could be thank you response letters that we've sent out or that we've received that aren't directed to mayor and council, but could be informative to mayor and council. They'll get put in the consent calendar. So they're not directed to us as these are. So when we go to receive the consent calendar, if we just receive it, we can't discuss it. So if you want to say in the consent calendar, there's one item, number 4, you want to discuss, we just need a motion to receive that for discussion. And then it can be seconded, and then we can discuss that letter. If something were to come out of that letter, then we would need a separate motion to move forward. So if somebody wanted to move something forward or direct something to be done, then we would need a separate motion. So the consent calendar is for our knowledge, not directed to us, not directed for us to get a response. So that's why it's in consent calendar and not under correspondence. So did I miss anything, Tab? You're a great teacher. Thank you. Yeah, so with that being said, there is 4 in this consent calendar. So they are generally what we would do is if there was, say, 10 in here and they were all different areas, you could lift 1 or 2 if you wanted to. These 4 are pretty much all along the same lines. So I was going to put a motion forward to receive the whole list for discussion. And we can just have some quick discussion around this if there's any comments. I think these are all prominent issues that we've been dealing with in our community in the province. So I know these weren't directed at us. They're letters. They're not asking for letters of support, but I think it's important that we talk about what some of the things that we've done and that we're open to new ideas. So with that, I'm going to put a motion forward to lift all of the consent calendar for discussion. Second, Councillor Earl. So I guess I'll open it for discussion before I there's a couple things. Oh, I got to vote. I'll call that motion to vote.
How many is that, 6 now?
6, 7, I think.
It's 3-3 between both.
You've run out of paper to keep notes on me. Vote is closed and it's carried. All right, now that we've voted on it and it's carried. So I just was going to touch on a few things. Some of, this whole consent calendar is around a lot of the, public safety issues that we've been facing, criminal code issues, the vulnerable segment, the My Home place, all of that is in here. So, I know recently the provincial government, is in the middle of adopting some policies around the illicit drugs. So we've seen some dialogue on that. It is included on this. We'll learn more about it. We've taken, a lot of measures in hearing our community and moving forward, dealing with provincial, ministers, federally as well. On the catch and release program, we've hired a new staff sergeant in our department, which started in May. It feels like he's been here a long time, but it hasn't been. But he's an absolute asset to our community. He's done an unbelievable job so far with RC&P detachment. And not that they were horrible before at all, but he's a great addition to our community. And we will continue to advocate moving forward. So if there is ideas or there's help or there's things that, you think out there that us as a council and city can do to help, we want to hear about it. We want to, we understand where things are at. So, we're about solutions and moving forward, and we don't sit up here thinking we have the answers to everything. So if there is, community groups or organizations or citizens that, have ideas and ways that we could help and do things, we want to be, we're open. We're open to listen. So, that was some of the stuff that I wanted to touch on. There's obviously a lot more, but I don't know if anybody else had any things they wanted to add or any discussion points on the consent calendar. But I'll open it up. Anybody? Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your comments. I think they've obviously appropriate given the circumstances. I know one of the chief takeaways for myself, having attended UBCM last month, was that a lot of the frustrations and challenges we're experiencing in this community are identical to the experiences and challenges a lot of other communities are having, and there seems to be a chasm that's opened up between municipal governments and the provincial government around a sense of urgency as far as resources, as far as taking action. I don't want to seem ungrateful to the province for having changed its mind around recriminalizing drug use within close proximity to parks and things of that nature. I remain astounded that it was ever legalized to begin with during the initial decriminalization, and the fact that we as municipalities all across the province had to use our resources in different bylaws all over the place to backstop that, what I'd call poorly thought out aspect of the policy, still remains kind of puzzling to me. I thank the local organizations that voice their concern. It's difficult, right? We all want to be good neighbors and nobody wants to kick up a fuss, but when there's a legitimate problem and legitimate challenges, if we don't hear about it and we don't have a good understanding what it is, it makes it very difficult for us to address it. So, I do feel like this subject in particular at UBCM was something that the province is beginning to understand. In addition to the various challenges they have around it, one they need to be mindful of is a growing credibility gap in the various publics across the province, because I don't know that they fully understood to the extent to which the public was losing confidence in their ability to appropriately deal with this information. And for those, yes, it's about the broader community safety, but for those whose, the proponents of harm reduction and decriminalization, whose chief concern is the vulnerable population that is dying as a result of the poison drug crisis, when this initiative falls flat, those are going to be the people that are most heavily impacted. So we all need to make sure we're getting it right. And as far as the province, this is, I think, an appropriate first foray, but they need to, I don't want to say almost like the amount of resources required, I don't know that they fully appreciated when they undertook this, but they need to mobilize a lot quicker than they are. And be it the letter from the Public Safety and Solicitor General or the letter from BC Housing, I still don't get a sense that they appreciate the urgency here. So, I mean, for us, on our part, my commitment to the public is to keep pushing. And I'd encourage you to continue engaging with us, but also making your discontent known to the province, because they do need to understand if this is an emergency, then we really do need to be treating it like an emergency. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll agree. Yeah. Any other? All right. So don't need anything else on that then? No? Okay. Next order of business is 14, 2023 strategic priorities. 14.1. Anything to update? No? Okay. 15 media questions. No media questions. 16. Recess to close meeting. So 16.1, resolution to move into the meeting of council closed to the public. Agenda 2.1, section 90 minutes as previously noted. Agenda 4.1, section 91E, the acquisition, dispossession, or expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality. And agenda 4.2, Section 91K, negotiation and related discussion respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of council could reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality if they were held in public. Motion to accept, Councillor Sudnick, second, Councillor McDonald. Call that to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried.